Well, let me quote one sentence of your paper. I think it was sentence number 1. The leading motive in anthroposophic medicine is that warmth and more intensively fever are direct manifestations of the self working on the body. What does it mean?
Yeah, that is an opinion within anthroposophic medicine, that there is a correspondence between warmth and the self. Now that's a very interesting concept. And this correspondence is understood to be there on a spiritual level, on a soul level, on a physiological level and physical level. Now, let's start with the physical level. We know that when a person is getting too cold, they have difficulty feeling empathy, being creative. There is one examination. There's one examination, for example, in secretaries. They compared having the office at 22 degrees with having the office at 25 degrees. And the secretaries had made more mistakes and were less productive at 22 degrees than at 25 degrees. Now, this will of course be different in different countries and different for different individuals, because each of us need our own ambient temperature to be more productive. But what another study has shown is that if you want to be more creative, you need a more relaxed atmosphere, and for that it's good to have a slightly warmer ambient temperature. And if you want to be more precise and abstract, then you can have a slightly cooler temperature. To the point where if you study people who've just watched a film, and if you interview them afterwards and analyze their vocabulary, you will find that the people who were in a warm room when watching the film will use warmer, more creative, more colorful, more imaginative vocabulary to describe the film, and will use a language that is more empathetic and in correspondence with the interviewer. Whereas people who were sitting in a colder room watching the same film will speak more abstractly and dryly about the film. And there have been studies also with regards to empathy and generosity. Very interesting little study done in Colorado, looking at how people respond to an empathy test, depending on one parameter which they were not aware of. The empathy test was performed on the 8th story of a building, and while the people entered the elevator, another person entered as well, and handed the person who was going to be examined, a cup of fluid, saying, "Could you hold this, please, my coffee, while I do my shoelaces?" And this was randomized. Half of the group held a warm cup, and the other half of the group held a cold cup. And the half of the group that held a warm cup did better in the empathy test afterwards, and were also more likely to choose a gift to give to someone else than to keep for themselves. So they were more generous. This was later examined in an MRI examination, where they compared being in an MRI with magnetic resonance imaging of the brain and having your hand on a cold object or on a warm object. And if you have your hand on a warm object, particular centers lighten up in your head that have to do with perception of warmth. These same centers are the ones that are activated when, in that same study, people received warm, loving messages compared to neutral messages from their friends. So we can say there's a correspondence between, even all the way down into the neurobiology, between warmth and empathy, between warmth and generosity. And it's interesting to know that a warm personality is one of the most important characteristics in social life. If we say someone has a warm personality, that is one of the most positive things we can say about someone. So again, here we have a correspondence on various levels between warmth And those qualities which we see as most human,